nights when the hearts are so hard and the fights getting harder, but we're getting stronger, there's no turning back. So hit the ground running, cause we can't back down. Now is the time, and we've been waiting so long, just to fight with all that we've been waiting on. Wanna call, but can we all afford a few more? Y'all get up, shout now, say.
It is Chris Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin, back with another episode with another great musician. And I have to tell you guys this. I've interviewed a zillion band members in my time. I think I finally hit the pinnacle of absolute raw talent with this guy. This guy has a resume that just is unbelievable when you read it, and we'll talk all about it. He's got the musical pedigree of legends. He's got the musical sound of legends. He's worked with legends. He's on his way to becoming a legend, I'll say, but we're going to catch him before he gets all the way there. It is Mychael Gabriel. Mychael, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Chris, listeners, thank you so much for having me. Chris, you're making me blush with all the compliments. I mean, I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do with my hands now? You know, I'm like, no, for real though. Thank you. You are very kind.
Well, dude, I as I told you before we got started, man, I am not blowing smoke up your ass on this, man. Your record is fantastic, or your release is fantastic, Genesis. It is a stylistic, challenging record for people. I think if people are going in looking for one thing, they're not going to find it, because you definitely channel a lot of different sounds. But the songwriting and the playing and the talent level, it jumps off it. And I know you know that, but it's refreshing to see in today's world an artist that understands the art and not just making something that they can put on YouTube.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into the making of it, you know, and the reaction that I've received so far has been a positive one. And that's always nice, because, you know, when you put something out in the ether, you never know exactly what the reaction is going to be, you know, until you just gotta let it go, you know.
Right.
It's kind of like you know, letting the bird kind of leave the nest. It's like, okay, we've spent enough time together. Now I have to share you with the rest of the world, you know. So, but yeah, it's great to finally have it out there.
Absolutely. Well, Mychael, there's a lot of people that are watching this that I'm sure are not familiar with you at all, you know, as I'm sure you're aware. Without getting into a 10-minute diatribe about yourself, can you give us the Cliff Notes version of your amazing history? Because it is quite amazing.
Yeah, the abridged version is my parents met while working on the Purple Rain tour. My dad worked in the Prince camp. He was his personal security, ended up becoming his manager and president of Paisley Park. My mom grew up with Sheila E in the Bay Area. They were childhood friends. Sheila's actually my godmother. And my mom was Sheila's road manager and co-lyricist. And so I jokingly say I'm like a Purple Rain love child, you know, because my parents, they met while working on that tour. And then music has just been a part of my life from the very beginning. You know, it's almost as if it was written in the stars. Guitar is my first love, you know, and more instruments kind of, they were just invited in the household at an early age. And then I became, I went to school for audio engineering because songwriting has always been a passion of mine.
Okay.
And so I went to school for audio engineering because I wanted to learn how to make my recordings on my simple cassette 8-track recorder. I'm like, not sound like shit. I'm like, how do I make this sound like, you know, the records I've been listening to, you know? And so, that was just the natural evolution and progression. And then that turned into me giving Sheila a call. And I said, you know, hey, can I, you know, be on a fly on the wall in your studio? That was like 16, 17 years old. And that just opened a door of a wealth of opportunities for me. And that's kind of how my career got started. I ended up becoming her head engineer of her studio way back. And then that turned into working with other artists and other legends, working in film and television. And here I am now talking to you.
Yep. Yeah. well, man, a lot to unpack there. For anybody that has not heard the new release or any of your music, but certainly the newest release, the Prince impression is all over. And I don't mean like you're imitating Prince. I mean like his musical gift was impressed upon you pretty much your whole life. That's very clear. For you personally, you know, that's got to be a blessing and a curse to have that in your pedigree. Obviously, it's a blessing because the guy might have been the most gifted artist ever.
Right.
At the same time, just his name in your bio, boy, does that put a ton of pressure on you to sound a certain way, no?
It can. You know, what I've learned is that, you know, there's no one that's ever going to be, you know, there's never going to be another Prince.
Right.
I mean, Prince is like the Mozart of our time, you know, and quite arguably, like you said, you know, one of the greatest musicians to ever live, you know. And so what any of us can do is just do our best to kind of honor what came before.
Right.
And, you know, the encouraging part for any musician nowadays is like, you know what, the thing that an interesting, I don't know if you want to call it advantage, but an interesting perspective you can have on it is that Prince never grew up listening to Prince. Right. You know, and now we are blessed with this opportunity to grow up with, you know, listening to, this incredible, you know, artistry, not only as, you know, not only in the music that he created, but in the performer that he was as well.
Sure.
So yeah, for me at an early age, you know, kids are sponges, and I didn't appreciate or understand the uniqueness of the situation as a very young child. You know, it's just normal to me, you know, and I don't have any other perspective on it, you know. But at being able to look back, I am filled with nothing but gratitude for the uniqueness of that situation and being able to, you know, absorb the music and from a very kind of up close and kind of personal perspective. Sure. And yeah, so I mean, I would say that it's not anything that I'm trying to do to imitate.
Right.
It's just something that's kind of in my DNA, you know. It's like, it's not like I sit down and go, okay, I wanted this song to sound like this. It just kind of comes out.
Right.
You know? And the really, really interesting part about that is when we've had opportunities to because we've done a few tributes to Prince. We did a Grammy tribute to Prince just in 2020.
Sure.
And so picking up the guitar and and playing some of those famous lines, you know, those guitar lines, it's like that, you know, you don't want to mess up,
right?
You know, because everybody knows how it goes. And, you know, if it doesn't sound authentic, people are going to be able to pick it up. It was really interesting because anytime I've picked those up and I'm like, okay, let me transcribe this. And it's like, I'm learning it and playing it exactly how I would play it.
Sure.
And then the realization dawns on me and I'm like, that's because I've been listening to it my entire life.
Right.
You know? So, yeah.
No question. Well, what was your design in life first? Was it to be a musician or was it to be an engineer? And I asked that just because, I mean, I know we're talking a lot about your music, but your engineering career is bigger by far than your music career at this point. Right. I mean, you've worked with, there's not a whole lot of people that have worked with Beatles and Stevie Wonder and Snoop and Earth, Wind and Fire, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's an unbelievably impressive resume.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just think it was just the natural progression for me, at least.
Okay.
Because I love being involved in all aspects of the creative process. And engineering is definitely a technical more technical side of the, you know, recording process.
Sure.
But there's also a creative aspect to that as well. And some of them, it's a marriage that goes hand in hand. You know, a lot of these people that I've had the opportunity of working with, you know, I might have been the engineer, but I'm also performing on the track as well, you know, and so it's been neat to kind of have, to kind of see both sides of it. And, you know, I've thankfully been able to garner a lot of, you know, just great life experience being on both sides. And so I think that's helped me in my own creativity as well.
Sure. How do you decide, as a creative guy, how do you decide what to keep versus what to save for, the next guy that needs a riff, or needs a beat, or needs, a piece of production or a production style that you don't want to, maybe you think especially in production, you guys all know a certain way to record things, a certain way to capture a certain sound.
Right.
But then for you, it's almost the, both sides of the sword. Do you keep it for yourself to have something amazing for yourself? Or do you get something that's going to reach, at least right now, 100,000 times more people with a major, huge artist and share it with them?
It just depends on the situation. But I think the thing that has to come first is just listening.
Okay.
Because if you're collaborating with somebody, listening is the most important part of communicating, more so than even like saying what you need to say. And that's especially true, like if you're co-writing or co-producing a track. I always say, it's like, okay, I want to see what is your vision first?
Okay.
And how can I add to that? Especially like as a producer role, it's like, okay, what is your vision, and how can my talents lend to that to kind of help elevate or augment what that is? And then if we're co-writing, it's a back and forth. Okay, I want to listen to what you have to say first. Okay, that's great. Okay, here's what my take on it. And let's see if we can meet somewhere in the middle. And I get a lot of that from my live music experience as well. Because playing in a band is all about listening and communication.
Sure.
Like if everybody's trying to, show off their chops every second, it's just going to sound like chaos. It has to be a little bit of back and forth. It's like, okay, okay, here's the back and forth. Okay, I like that exchange. Okay, here, let me tell a joke on my instrument. If I were to tell a joke, this is what it would sound like. Okay, well, I'm going to curse at you, and okay, now I'm going to do this. And it's like, it's just, it has to feel natural, and it can't be contrived, because the audience is they're gonna feel that. It's like, oh, there's just something that doesn't feel authentic about this, especially playing the style of music that I've been touring for as long as I have. Communication is so key in all aspects of whatever you're doing.
Sure. And probably more so, especially, working with Sheila in a percussive type of a band. I mean, the percussion it's just not the common, it's not led by the vocalist. It's, for music like that to be led by percussion, you almost have to, you're used to kind of, as a guitar player, being the leader of the musical arrangement. And then you're not. That's got to be incredibly difficult to do. No?
Well, as long as you're listening, it's easier. Well, because if you think of percussion like as an instrument, its job is to kind of fill in the space, but not every space. Right. And so now you kind of have that in the forefront. I mean, having Sheila on percussion, like, just because she's Sheila.
Sure.
I mean, it's like you're getting the cream of the crop, you know what I mean? So she knows exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly. I mean, she's been doing this long enough where, you're getting a master class every time you get a chance to share the stage. So, the thing that all of us everyone in the band is always kind of keeping in mind is just paying attention and listening.
Right.
And if you do that, it alleviates a lot of like kind of, whatever anxiety or pressure that you might have had, because you're like, oh, we're just a bunch of musicians having a conversation.
Right.
Certainly. It's like, and that's it. And then you almost feel at ease, and then you're like, okay, cool.
Right on.
Yeah,
definitely. Well, I'll tell you what, Mychael, let's we haven't talked much about Genesis yet, but we will here. But why don't we do this? Why don't we give people a taste of Genesis so that they know what we're about to talk about?
I love it.
So the first video that's out there, or the first actual video that's out there, is Let There Be Light. It's the current single from the record. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this one to lead into it, and then we'll play some of it.
Yeah. So Let There Be Light. It's a song about self-empowerment, really, is kind of what it's about. The whole record is an origin story. That's why it's named Genesis, off of the, named after the first book of the Bible. And, so there's a biblical allegory that kind of that's intertwined through all the tracks on the album. But the record itself is an origin story that speaks to my origin and the songs and sounds that inspired me. And so 1970s rock has always been near and dear to my heart. And so this is kind of my homage to that in a sense. So yeah, and if you were to take away any sort of message from this song, it would be to bring out the light in oneself.
Okay.
So,
excellent. Well, let's bring it out. Well, then let's bring it out right now. It is Let There Be Light. It is Mychael Gabriel, and it is Chris Akin Presents.
I'm on fire, gonna bring the heat and play for keeps. Never been the one to take a back seat. Know what I mean? You look to be like a mushroom, burning fire. We're misbehaved, little too untamed. But never blind to what's going on. Now that I'm here, let me your ear. Enjoy the breeze, yeah. Nobody, no way, gon' stop me today. Not uptight, but don't play. I ignite, let there be light. You feel the mood, changing the room. It must be blinding to your gentle eyes. That's no surprise, I get that light on account of my burning fire.
All right, that was Let There Be Light, brand new single from Mychael Gabriel. And Mychael is joining us right now to talk all about his new release, Genesis, which is fantastic. It's out there now. Go buy it. And dude, are there physical product? Is there physical product, or is it?
There will be. So I'm working on what I'm calling a deluxe version of the record that's going to include additional tracks, extended versions, just more treats. So we will do a physical run on that version. So just be on the lookout for it.
So for now, stream it, but plan to buy it. Don't be cheap, for God's sakes. Buy it when there's physical product. Don't just give these guys 1/1,000,000th of a cent for listening to their work. So, well, dude, as I've told you, man, I love this record. It's hard to describe it. And I hate to keep referencing back to Prince, but it's like a Prince record. It's very hard to describe, from song to song. You cover a lot of different musical ground.
Right.
And, I know you wrote a lot, probably all of this during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Was it all in like 1 week, month, 6-month session, or did you do it in pieces? And that's why you have so many different styles mixed around.
Yeah, so there's a few different answers to those questions. So I've been writing since I was like 11 years old, just songs, and that was one of my first passions for music, was songwriting. My first love, I say, is my guitar, but my first like real obsession and like passion was songwriting. So I have always had this like kind of huge catalog of just songs, never kind of really knowing what to do with them, but I knew I wanted to release a record. And during the pandemic, it really became clear that like, this is, I've been doing this a lot for other people. I want to do this for myself. And I think a lot of musicians kind of felt themselves in that spot. It's like, there needs to be an evolution of self throughout this period. And so this record kind of speaks to that. And that's why I say it's like an origin story for me.
Sure.
And one of the reasons it's a multi-genre album is because I'm inspired by so many different styles of music. And the way that I treat genre is kind of the same way as I think of an instrument. I write and create with sentiment and feeling in mind. I might not think like, I want this song to sound exactly like, I want this song to have the Minneapolis sound, but I know how the Minneapolis sound makes me feel. So maybe that genre lends to that feeling in a certain way. Maybe that, like, 70s sort of rock vibe lends to a certain feeling in a certain way, just like instruments or tone on your guitar can affect your emotional state in that moment and what you're listening to.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons it sounds, from track to track, there's an interesting marriage that somehow works, but it's a multi-genre album nonetheless.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was it difficult to sequence it?
Not after I decided on a concept. For me, it was always important for me I didn't want to just throw a bunch of songs on, an album and say, okay, here's a record.
Right.
It was important for me to have a concept, and that's where the biblical allegory kind of comes into play. The first couple tracks are from the perspective as almost like the voice of God, sort of speaking, into the world, and then we get into, like, if you want to dig deeper, you can, but then Adam and Eve is almost introduced, and then the rest of humanity, and then so there's this kind of like ebb and flow, hills and valleys that just made sense to me when sequencing it. And I hope it translates that well to the listeners in the way I think it does in my mind. But yeah, no, it was fun for me. It was almost like a puzzle. It's like, oh, okay, this piece fits just perfectly right here. And, okay, it revs up just enough. And okay, then we come back down, So it was fun. It was just another part of the creative process that I like.
Right on. Well, man, I always tell everybody my favorite song to see where it ranks with them. For me on this release, it's an easy one, probably surprisingly easier than on a lot of records.
I'm excited. I'm excited. Which one is it?
Summertime, without question.
Really?
My favorite. And I'll tell you exactly why. I love the big build that then just drops out. And you just have the little guitar part there in the middle. That's a hook that'd catch a whale on a boat. I mean, it's such a cool hook, and it's such a cool song, and it's such a cool, chorus. The whole song is cool, man. So A, where does that one stand for you? And B, tell me a little bit about this song.
Oh yeah. So you know what? It's kind of hard. It's like picking your favorite kid.
Sure.
It's like, what's your favorite track? That's kind of tough to do. I like them all for different reasons.
Sure.
That's why they're on the record.
Right.
A little bit about that song is I needed a song that was just kind of uplifting, just for the sake of being uplifting.
Okay.
During the pandemic, there was a whole wealth of emotions I think we all felt, on a wide spectrum, and from just from the isolation to the sadness, to the hopefulness, to the fear, to the just everything. And this kind of being born out of that period, I just needed something uplifting on the record, just for the sake of being uplifting. And I was like, okay, what's better than Summertime? And I decided to spell it with a Y because I spell my name with a Y. Okay. Because I've had that question in the past. And it's just a little kind of fun anecdote. But that song, it's just meant to kind of feel like a good time from start to finish.
Right on, man. Well, Mychael, obviously you are in Sheila E's band, and you tour with her.
Yep.
But now you have your own project. Now you have your own record. Where does that leave you? Is there going to be opportunity to tour this? Are you ready to start, like, kind of from the beginning?
I am so ready to start touring this record.
Okay.
I mean, playing this music live is that's one of the reasons why you put out a record, right? Is for an opportunity to really kind of let the music take on breathe new life into it in front of a live audience, so that's something I've been kind of chomping at the bit to have an opportunity to do. I'm still touring with Sheila.
Sure.
We still have dates in 2023, so you can expect to, see me out on the road touring this music that I've released, and still performing with Sheila as well.
Why can't she get you the double duty thing?
Right. Oh. Yeah.
That would make the most sense, wouldn't it?
That could happen. That could happen. Yeah. So you just have to stay tuned and find out.
Right on, man. Well, dude, I wanted to go to one video real quickly that you did that's not yours, but it is Sheila's, but I love it. I've watched it probably 300 times. The video for Everyday People. That just looks like you guys were having a ball, man. That just looks fun and it sounds great. Tell me about that shoot. Not so much the song. I get why you did the song, but the shoot itself just looked like you guys were having a great time.
Yeah, we were. It was just that record as a whole was a passion project for her.
Okay.
And as soon as we got into the studio to record, we had probably maybe 20, 30 songs. Okay. And we knew we weren't going to do all of them, but we knew her vision kind of became clear after that first sort of band meeting. And it just kind of carried over into the shoot. Everybody was really passionate about what we were doing, and we're like family at this point. It's like Sheila and I are close, but speaking in terms of like the entire band, it's like we consider each other family. So for us to have an opportunity to kind of share that and invite people into that family, via the video was, very unique opportunity for us.
Excellent. Well, I'm gonna invite people into your music as an opportunity as family, because I'm gonna be honest. I saw that tour, the Prince Purple Rain tour back in 1985, because I'm an old head. So in some way, I feel like I'm part of this project.
Dude, it all comes full circle, doesn't it?
Me and the other 3 million people that saw that tour, we're all part of making Mychael Gabriel.
Hey, we're all family.
Exactly. Well, man, this new release, it's called Genesis. It is Mychael Gabriel, and make sure you spell it so that you can find it. Mychael Gabriel. Make sure you spell it that way so that you find it on Spotify or YouTube Music or wherever you look, because it is well worth your time to find. And Mychael, I figured we would wrap this one up with the lyric video that you have out there for Celebrate, another great song off the record.
Let's do it.
So we'll play it here in a second, but where should we tell people to go to follow you and your career and tour dates and all that stuff?
Yes. So you can find me. Mychael Gabriel is my social handle. Just make sure you spell it with a Y. Right. That's for everything from Instagram to Twitter to Facebook. And you can go to mychaelgabriel.com to, stay up to date with all the latest news as well.
Very good. Well, let's check out a little bit more of Mychael Gabriel. This is the lyric video for Celebrate. And Mychael, thanks so much for joining me here on Chris Akin Presents.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for having me.
On a mission to celebrate like the 4th of July. I could kiss you. Celebrate until we die. That's our mission. To celebrate like the 4th of July. I could kiss you. Celebrate until we die. They celebrate our lives. They celebrate until